So today we are talking about fish in a barrel. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, it was so easy, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. So you're going to see the recurring theme of fish throughout this entire presentation. And we're going to show you where you can theoretically find your fish in a barrel and where these talent pools are that you might not necessarily think of. So to start off, Mark, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, my name is Mark Tortorici. You may not know me, but I train sources and recruiters. I have my own training company, Transform Talent Acquisition, and I train many companies and agencies in the ways of sourcing, recruiting, and technology. And that's about it.
Awesome. And I am Erin Mathew. I am the talent sourcing manager at Maxar Technologies. And I have been in talent acquisition since 2014, so not very long. I'm an active contributor to HRTX, SourceCon, Sourcing Summit, and as you will soon find out, my favorite place to source in the world is Reddit. I think it's theoretically impossible for me to do a presentation without mentioning it at least once, so, deal with it. Um, I have experience sourcing healthcare, IT, education, finance, and other creative roles as well. So we'll see a little bit of that today. So what we're going to talk about, and I'll wait for the next slide to load. I'm looking at the audience view, and it's a little bit slow there, so there might be a little bit of a delay on our slides. But as we know, there's plenty of fish in these respective seas. You've got job boards like LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Career Builders. But the problem is, are we possibly overfishing? And what I mean by overfishing is when you go on a lot of the commonly used job boards, there is oftentimes situations that you run into where they're getting contacted by the same recruiters all the time. And it's the same candidates that are always getting the messages. So that's what I mean by overfishing. Sometimes I found that I have better luck when I go a little bit out of the box to find people, especially if, we're looking for a truly passive candidate. So what we're going to do is tell you a little bit about where you should find your barrel of fish, so to say. So Mark and I are just kind of going to tell you a little bit about a couple of the questions that we ask ourselves when we go about looking for a few unconventional ways in order to find these candidates. So one of my favorite questions to ask is, where are they going to learn? So when you think about any type of role, there's a lot of places online that you can go to learn new things and get better at your job. Think about sourcers, for example. We go to conferences all the time to learn new things. We attend webinars. Some sourcers even have YouTube channels that we can go and learn things. So, Mark, where do you go to find out where maybe developers or healthcare professionals or anybody else goes to learn?
Yeah, I mean, and I think maybe the audience too. I don't know if they're able to chime in, but when you're trying to look for somebody where they're going to be at, you look for like kind of how they got started, which could be a school, it could be a certification program, it could be, like I think you said a study group. So
Mm-hmm.
it really could be anything. I mean, where they start out, right?
Awesome. Definitely, definitely. Where are they seeking support? That's an interesting question to ask as well. We often sometimes get into a rut with our jobs. So that kind of goes hand in hand with where are they going to learn, but maybe where are they going to fix a problem that they may not be as experienced with being able to fix. Like, for example, Stack Overflow. That is like one of the biggest places that developers are going to seek support. Like, I can't figure out why my button's working. Can any of you find the bug in the code? Because I sure can't.
Exactly. I mean, if they're going to seek support, they're definitely not going to LinkedIn.
No, no, at least not from what I've seen. I haven't seen any posts like, hey, developers out there, how do you do this, that, and the other? They're definitely going to social coding communities and things like that.
Yeah, and
Um,
actually, the Stack Overflow thing you said too is good because I think on Stack Overflow there are ranking levels. So people
yes.
who have a higher rank, and the people who answer the most questions get a higher rank, and the people whose answers are more recognized by the community get a higher rank. So you can kind of find the people who are the best question answerers, so to speak.
Oh yeah, definitely. Where are they going to vent? That's kind of a fun one for me. You can find, of course, subreddits for just about anything. And I've found some really great communities where people are going to vent about the usual frustrations of their job because they're on a community with like-minded people that experience the same thing. For example, there's actually one called forklift memes on Reddit, and it's all hilarious things about forklifts, and it's surprisingly active as well. So if you source for people that are, hourly factory workers that need to be certified to drive a forklift, check it out. It's funny, but it's also a pretty thriving community as well. And then there's a couple of nursing communities as well. There's a lot of daily frustrations. I mean, I hear about them from my husband because he's a nurse too, but he sure relates to a lot of the stories that he hears on there as well. So where would you go to vent, Mark?
I mean, if I was a developer, which I'm not, but if I was a developer, I mean, I might go to Reddit. I might find like a group like about recruiters and go vent in there. Or you might actually vent about the job. Like you might actually vent about unrealistic requirements from the customers, or maybe an engineering leader that's maybe not quite doing the right thing, or at least the thing that you think is right. So there's a lot of places people can vent, but yeah, definitely like your Reddits. I mean, I don't know if you want to go down the 4chan rabbit hole, but I mean,
Ooh,
like there are places like that where you can actually just go and vent about that. Technical forums sometimes are another place to vent.
yeah, maybe even Discord. There's a lot of venting that goes on Discord channels, so
Discord, yes.
I still need to figure out how to effectively source that one, but that's for another day. Let's see, and this will load in just a second. Is there a public record of their profession? It's something that I didn't really think about. It's a lot of times I didn't realize that certain professions are publicly available online for you to search for them. So we're going to be going through a little bit of that in the presentation as well, whether it's healthcare licenses or we're not going to present on this, but voter records actually oftentimes tell you the profession of a person as well. I've seen people like Greg Hawkes use the election website for sourcing purposes.
Nice. That's a good one.
And let's see, where are they going not to think about work? That's kind of where different social sites would definitely come into play. You can definitely check out places like Pinterest or Instagram to find people online. And something interesting that I've discovered recently is that search engines actually recognize emojis as the word associated with them. So oftentimes I've even looked for nurses on Instagram by using the little nurse emoji. And it does show up in people's profile where instead of saying that that's what they do for a job, they just have the little symbol there instead. Same thing with like cloud developer. They just put the emoji and then developer, but it registers the same way with a search engine as if it was the word. So that's something really interesting that I've found as well. So what do you say, Mark? Should we go fishing?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go fishing. We gotta, yeah, catch something before the hiring manager comes down on us.
Yeah, exactly. Let's find some licensed clinical social workers. This is actually a type of role that I used to source for all the time when I was a healthcare recruiter for Fresenius Kidney Care, which was dialysis clinics. And this is so simple, yet it was never taught to me in the 3 years that I worked there. I was constantly looking for social workers, constantly, and it was one of the most challenging roles because they had to be licensed at the master's level and have experience in dialysis. And I, for the most part, relied entirely on LinkedIn or Indeed to just search people that maybe were social workers and maybe were licensed, when I didn't realize I could go right to the state that I was looking in and find every single person that was licensed right then and there. So let's take a quick look at Indiana. You can look up just about any type of license. Let's see, are you seeing the screen yet, you guys? Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
you're on the license page, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag, but I'll try and keep an eye on that. So you can look up licenses by any type, whether it's, oh wow, you can even look up asbestos inspectors here. That's really interesting. But you can go by professions, license type. Sometimes there's certain licenses that are for the same profession, so that's why they have it separated out that way. But let's search by profession, look for social workers. That's weird. They don't have it sorted out that way. Let's see. Licensed master social worker. Where is that?
So they just put it under social worker?
I thought they did. I literally just did this, I swear.
I think it's under social worker.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the license type, I think I saw it.
That is so weird.
There you go.
There we go. I'm going crazy here. Let's see, and let's make sure that we only look for people with an active license as well.
Yeah, because I've done these searches before, and yeah, that's a key thing. Because the people who just let it lapse, well, they're probably not doing the job anymore. So you want to make sure you're getting active.
Exactly. And what's really awesome about this is once we get this list, we have a pretty good amount of information of, figuring out if we can find the right person on LinkedIn or any other medium. We know exactly where they live, where they reside, where they're licensed, and first, last, middle name. We can tell exactly when the license expires as well. Once it comes up on the screen, you'll see, yeah, you get that it's active, when it was issued, and when it expires. So that is a very simple way to find social workers that I wish I could have told my former self when I was a healthcare recruiter. So next
if only
up,
I had known.
Yes. So that's a little example for where is there a public record of their profession. Here's a good one for where do they go to learn. A lot of people, believe it or not, still like to read what are called books. So this is where I would go to Amazon.com to find some Angular JS developers. Now, what I have learned in the past, a long time ago, Brian Fink taught me how to source on Amazon. And he does this specifically by looking at the reviews of different books, looking at who's most critical of it and what they're saying about the book. So let's take a quick look here. Let's take a look at this Angular JS book here. And let's go to the reviews. So, you can get some pretty good information from this. You can say like, oh, all these people reviewed it, so obviously they must know something about Angular. But the problem with actually going in and looking for information about people that reviewed it is a lot of times people on Amazon don't complete their profiles. They're not giving you a whole lot of information. Obviously, we can see there's no profile picture, there's no cover photo. Sure, we've got a first and a last name, and she apparently lives in Connecticut, so we can possibly find this person on LinkedIn. However, I noticed something else really interesting as I was searching for ways to source on Amazon. I don't know if this is a relatively new feature, but I've noticed it pretty recently. Amazon allows you to follow authors. So once this actually scrolls up in the audience view there, we see the author of this book is Felix Alvaro, and we can follow them if we have an Amazon account. But then I realized, hey, this is hyperlinked, which means that they allow the authors to actually have profiles. So he tells us a little bit about himself. He's a web designer, an author, what he likes to do. And then I kind of went down the rabbit hole with this and looked at profiles of other authors as well. Some of them are giving some pretty detailed information about themselves, like where they live, where they went to school, really anything that can possibly be indexed. And then I was like, okay, how can I possibly search for other authors that know AngularJS? Well, what I've noticed about the author profile page is they all are going to have the text that says, follow to get new release updates. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And then we're going to go into a Google search.
Good old Google.
And then we'll do a site search, Amazon.com. And then I'm going to put in quotations, follow to get new release updates, and then I'll just type in AngularJS. I'll wait for that to load.
There you go.
There we go. Now it's loaded all the results. So we have 292 results of authors on Amazon that have AngularJS listed in their profile. And this is something that you can do for pretty much any kind of skill set. You can even use maybe a natural language query, like, is a software developer? And there we go. We have 56,000 results, which is amazing. And then we can even possibly narrow it down. Let's see if there's anyone in Chicago. 3,000 Amazon software developers that are authors. I think that's absolutely amazing. I had no idea. And a lot of this is related to the fact that now it's very easy to self-publish on Amazon. So you may think, oh, they've written a book. Maybe they're too senior for what we're looking for. Not necessarily. There's some people that are, not necessarily self-employed as an author, but they're writing content and they just want to get the word out about it to help other people learn. And they might just be attainable for you to make them an offer. So, fun little thing there.
Yeah,
All
I mean,
right.
everyone is an author these days, so.
Oh yeah. It's awesome. So I saved the best example for last, and I'll just take a second to let it load. If any of you are physicians recruiters, everybody knows that in order to become a doctor, you have to take the MCAT, which stands for Medical College Admissions Test. And I would say that this community that we're about to look at fits almost every single one of the questions that we asked in the beginning. This is where people are going to learn. This is definitely where people are going to vent. You'll see a lot of posts on here that are like memes with common frustrations about studying for the MCAT or applying to med school in general. They're seeking support and giving support. There isn't like a public record of these people yet because they're not doctors. However, there is an ample record for what their test scores have been. This is probably one of the best run communities that I have ever seen on Reddit or just in general. They have a study buddy thread where you can find people from all over the country that are possibly close to you or people that can meet online. They require you to list a location. They require you to say what test date you're going to do. And then a lot of people talk about what kind of score they want to get, what they've already done on a practice test. So it's really interesting to see what goes on here. And in addition to that, it's a great way to pipeline for future doctors. And the best part is they archive all of these threads as well. It goes all the way back to May of 2015. So these are people that probably have spent the last 4 years in med school and are just beginning their residency right now. So going back to some of these old threads could be a really great source if you're looking to pipeline some doctors for the future. So let me show you something else that's really cool about this community. they have kept a compilation of users in this community's MCAT scores. So, let's say that you want to hire someone that scored in the 90th percentile on the test. You can go to this active spreadsheet, and once again, they have records of all these Reddit users that were part of this community. They have all of their scores all the way back to 2015. So this is really just a rich community of people that, like I said, if you're a physician's recruiter and you're not looking here, you should be. They even have a Discord channel where they're, of course, providing support to each other, discussing the test and, saying things like, oh my gosh, that question was so unfair. I hate the biology session. I hate all of this. But it's definitely a really awesome community. And like I said, this is the ultimate fish in a barrel situation. So.
Nice. I forgot to mention to you when you showed me this, I forgot I had done this for certified financial planners, like the people who are taking the certification, because apparently the test is like insanely difficult. And they had the same, and it was weird because they had it set up the same exact way. They had people who like would post their scores, somebody else compiled them into a spreadsheet, and everyone was like, talking about, their top scores and this and that. But yeah, and it was on Reddit. It was on a Reddit one. So
Oh yeah, and it's just outstanding. So if there's a big scary test that's related to anything that you source for, go to those study groups and those support groups. So I'm ready to change over control to you, Mark.
oh, changing control. Dun dun. All right, let's do it. Let's do it up here. That was cool. So that certified financial planner test, like apparently that's like something that drives people crazy. So if you're looking
Where
for
the
like
LSAT, I've heard that too.
yeah, so if you're looking for something, kind of like that, then that could be something. Okay, let me show my screen. Let me show my screen. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen yet. Okay, is that you guys can see my screen okay? Cool. So now we're going to talk about a couple examples, kind of utilizing the same question framework that Erin laid out here. And I'm going to do like a technical and then a non-tech and then a final one here. So the first one is engineering candidates. So when you're looking at candidates, technical candidates, you got to understand, first of all, what they do in order to source for them. Because if you don't understand what they do, well, then you're going to have trouble sourcing for them. You're just going to buzzword them to death. So you got to understand first. And then, of course, you got to figure out where they hang out. Where do all these candidates hang out? Where do they exchange information? It's probably not LinkedIn. And then engaging. Everybody is blasting these candidates with bad messaging. So, of course, we have to be better in our outreach. And then, of course, once we know where, then we have to devise the sourcing strategy. So I'm going to kind of show you this. So one of the questions that Erin put forth was, where is there a public record of their work? So for like development background, you think, okay, is there any sort of, development background? You want to look for evidence of posts or, examples of code that have been posted to the world. So we're talking about code contributors. We're talking about social coding sites. Like Erin, like which social coding sites have you looked at besides like Stack Overflow?
So there's actually a lot of them that I look at now because once again, even though GitHub and Stack Overflow are somewhat separated from our usual job boards, they're being overfished now too. So I go to some of the smaller social coding communities like DevTO, or if you're looking for more junior developers, go to Hashnode. What I like about that community is it's much less intimidating than GitHub. And speaking personally as a sourcer that's trying to get some sort of a functional knowledge of being able to code, they're much nicer there.
Right.
So it's a really cool community to see that there as well.
Right. They're like, you left out a space here. So for this example, let's say we need to find TypeScript engineers. You can either look at all the contributors to the TypeScript project on GitHub, or you look at users who have created a repo fork. And for those of you who don't know what a fork is, it's when you basically take the code and copy it, and then you start making your own changes and post those to the interwebs. So here's the official TypeScript page. Obviously, Microsoft has it because it's theirs. But there are some things that you can pay attention to here. Like, for instance, the amount of people who forked this code, that's 8,800 people. That's a lot of people. So if you click on that, it's like, whoa, look at all these people. What? So you're probably like, okay, cool. There's a bunch of usernames and something to do with TypeScript. Well, no, a little more, because they've like taken the code, copied it, and then started doing their own development. So they are worth something in terms of this search. So you're probably thinking, okay, well, what do I do now? This is basically a list of like, your own kind of complete ocean here. So you can source and cross-reference one at a time, or you can use a scraping recipe and scrape every single one of those usernames out of there, which is what I did. So data miner, for those of you who don't know what it is, data miner is a simple scraping tool. Pretty easy to use. Most of the time, it's just point and click. There are some recipes that you have to create that require you to get deeper into it, but for the most part, it's pretty easy. And so I just extracted all the usernames and put them into a spreadsheet. So there you go. So you're probably thinking, great. But if you use a GitHub API call, you can then populate your entire spreadsheet with information about each user. So instead of you getting just these usernames here, you can get their name, company, location, email, bio, links, all that stuff. Now, not everybody fills it out, so that means you may still have to do extra sourcing if you're really neurotic and you want to get every single one. But still, this is like a pretty awesome list. And of course, once it's in a spreadsheet, well, you can organize by like location. I can get all the people who are in California, or all the people who are in San Francisco or San Jose. Like, I mean, you can slice and dice this any way you want. What do you think, Erin?
I think that's brilliant. I've never even thought to look at who forked the code to make it their own. That's brilliant.
I should have had a meme of what was that movie? Was it Galaxy Quest? Wait, was it Galaxy Quest? Was the guy who had the forks for hands? Or no, not
Oh,
Galaxy.
I think that was Galaxy Quest,
Was it
wasn't it?
Galaxy Quest? Okay, so someone's gonna remember. Someone's gonna chime in on that.
Yeah,
So
someone.
yeah, so that example brought to you by GitHub Native Search, basically searching within GitHub, Data Miner, GitHub API, which is free, and then Block Spring, and then good old-fashioned data scrubbing. Good. So there's one example. So here's a mega fishing example. So now we're talking mega fish
We're gonna
and
need a bigger boat.
an even bigger bow. So I want to take what Erin was talking about earlier for healthcare workers. So she showed us like a couple of really good examples, like the MCATs, public licenses. Those are like definite go-to places. In fact, public licenses are good because each state has their own way to search, and each state has like variances on how much information they give back. So sometimes, like depending on the state that you're using, their system is a little more robust than another state's. And so they're all different. None of these states communicate with each other. So what else can we do to find healthcare workers online besides those state and county websites? What do you think, Erin?
There's all kinds of places. Forums, for example. There's several different nursing forums. Nclex study groups. Once again, you have to take the Nclex in order to become a nurse. That's also a big scary test that you can look for. Any kind of study groups. Alumni associations.
Yeah, ooh, so associations, that's like a key thing. Because some of these, there's a ton of associations out there, but some of them are pretty forthcoming with their information. Some of the other ones have gotten wise to our tricks, and now they make you pay to log in. But there are still some out there that it's just, the data is just sitting out there. So it's definitely worth it. And then going back to your Reddit thing, there are a number of like, venting Reddit threads about nursing, right?
Yes, there are. And a lot of times, once again, they they unwittingly disclose a lot about themselves. I have been able to find several nurses because they're like, well, I work in the state of Texas. I specialize in hemodialysis. I've worked there for this many years. And then I look at other things that they've posted about that aren't nursing related. And then I'm able to string together a couple of things and actually find them in real life. So um, just for your own personal knowledge, Reddit is not as anonymous as you think it is. It's only as anonymous as what you don't say about yourself.
Exactly. And people are very repetitive with their usernames.
Yes, yes. Usernames are a great thing to run through a search engine. What's the one that I'm trying to think of it? There's a username search engine where it tells you where
Yeah,
else it's
there's like
used.
name check, and then there's name
Namecheck, that's the one.
CHK, and then it used to be user Sherlock, but then I think that got taken down. But if you go to osintframework.com, there's a list of these. So besides everything that we said, what about NPI numbers? NPI numbers. An NPI number is basically issued to healthcare providers in the United States. And everyone who does anything healthcare wise has to have one of these. And this includes doctors, pharmacists, physician assistants, nursing assistants, like, occupational therapists. I mean, like, it's just basically like everybody, dentists, like optometrists, like everybody. So this is a good thing because this is a database that you can publicly search. And there's a couple of ways that you can search. I'm just going to show you one of them. You can go to the official registry, which is a government website, or you can use some of these other sites that basically pull from that website. So I'm just going to go to the source, which is the registry. So when you get to this site, you basically have to figure out what the location is and then the taxonomy. And the taxonomy means basically the type of person you're looking for. And so I'm going to put in anesthesiologist, or I mean, a nurse anesthesiologist. And I'm going to put Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to search that. And you get all these results. Now, a couple things about the results. You could source on a one-to-one basis, like, just one-to-one cross-reference on your ATS or your, LinkedIn. Or you could also scrape as well, which I might have done. So I might have whipped up myself up a quick recipe and scraped all the information on the page and go from there. If you do want to source one-to-one, well, there's a couple things you can do with that information. Look at the person's name and try and figure out, okay, how would I find this person? Sometimes the information they give you here is pretty much like their private practice address. It's not necessarily like their home or their mobile number. So it does give you a phone, but I'm thinking this is probably their office address. I mean, I still might call anyways. I might still just call and say, hey, want a job? I mean, there's a number of reasons why you might do that. But you can also use people search engines like That's Them or advanced background checks. And all you need to do is put in like the name, put in the state, and then you get information like this. So you're probably thinking, okay, well, that is a phone number and that is an email address, but how do we know that that's right? Well, a couple of things. You mouse over the phone number and That's Them will tell you if it's a landline or a mobile. So now that I know it's a mobile, I'm probably going to call them or text them, right? Nurses, healthcare professionals in general do respond a lot more and quicker to text campaigns. So that's good to know. But what about that email? You're probably thinking, okay, well, phone number, great. But what about her email? So you could use a data enrichment tool or a verification tool. And there's a lot of ones that are out there. But Clearbit, Swordfish, Contacts Plus, these are ones that work pretty well. So this is Contacts Plus, and I basically take that name and search it. It's a Gmail kind of Chrome attachment here, and I search it and I find the person, and they are a nurse, and it gives you links to their information, what they're doing, and so basically you now have a complete picture of who this person is and how you can go after them. So success. What other? So Erin, have you used other, either these data enrichment tools or anything similar?
So we actually have used HireTool for data enrichment if we
Oh yeah.
have LinkedIn profiles, but nothing else. So that's one way. If you have that as a tool at your company, you can upload the spreadsheet to HireTool, and it will populate the contact info if it has it for that LinkedIn profile. And I have dabbled in Blockspring a little bit as well.
And what about if you just have, I mean, HireTool, I guess you still do the same thing. Can't you upload like a spreadsheet of like just emails, right? And
I,
it'll do the,
I've never tried it with just emails. I've tried it just with LinkedIn profiles.
okay, I have to check 'cause I can't remember if they do or not. But that's what these tools are meant to do. Like Contacts Plus, it used to be called Full Contact, but
Hmm.
Swordfish and Clearbit, like they're all like these. They basically take these emails and see where else they've kind of been used, and then aggregate that information into like one source. So they're pretty cool for sure. So good. So there's that example brought to you by NPI Registry Search, by Data Miner, That's Them, Contacts Plus, and good old-fashioned cross-referencing.
I feel like this is Sesame Street. Like, this day was brought to you by the letter A.
Okay, so last example. um, the sharks with freaking laser beams example. Okay. Um, this goes back to your question from the beginning of the presentation. Where are they seeking support? So not just where they're like kind of just where they are, but like where are they actually asking questions? So we already talked about coding sites, but here's another one. Let's say I need to find cloud platform engineers with containerization experience. Where might they go to ask questions and get help? What do you think, Erin?
Gosh, I don't know. Cloud engineers are getting harder, I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, and also like everybody needs them, right? And everyone's kind of
Right.
doing the
Everyone
same.
needs them.
Yeah, everyone's doing
There's
the
not
same
that
thing
many
because
of them.
the technologies are becoming more refined and getting better at what they're doing. And so people are kind of gravitating towards certain technology buckets, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I might search for maybe AWS certifications that are cloud-based.
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, and you could even go a step further with that, with what you said earlier about the MCATs, right? You can search people who've had to like pass the AWS cloud
Certifications.
engineering certification. Like, what do you have to do it? Who can help me? Who's done it before? All those answers you can just take and pull them into your search. That's a good idea. I might do that. Okay, so technical forums, user groups, study groups, meetup, anything where people just go to the same place and look for help. So if you don't know, throw a search out there. Here's a literal Google search that I ran. I put forum or group, and then I put a couple of cloud technologies, OpenStack, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and then I also could, because I want like the containerization kind of focus, I'm going to put Docker, Kubernetes, containerization, orchestration, words like that. And you get a bunch of results all over the place. Some results were from Google Cloud Platform, some were from AWS, personal homepages, OpenStack. So let me just pretty much choose one. So I'm going to choose OpenStack for this example. So you get here and you're like, okay, cool. Here's a community. But what does this really mean? So if you click on the community section where you can actually kind of like network with people of your own kind, let's say, you see that there are different things out there. And they have these archives of these different discussion forums. And discussion forums are great because of one reason. Why are discussion forums great? Who can tell me that? Discussion.
They're great because people disclose things about themselves and we can find them easier. And we can
Hey,
also see what their level of expertise is, whether they're asking for help or giving it. That's why they're
yeah,
so great.
that's right. So this is awesome because then you can actually click on them and then get more information. Now, one thing about the URL that I look at is this. this is the URL for that discussion group. So it looks like there might be more than just that one discussion group. So like what happens if I just peel it back to this? So it's just lists openstack.org. When I do that, all of a sudden, what? All the lists. This is so awesome. Yes, very interesting. So you can do something with this. You can click on one of these and then start to look at how you can use this information to your advantage. So notice how there are emails on these pages. Emails. So now you have a specific forum on a specific cloud stack and emails of people asking and answering questions. So that's something. That's something.
I
So
wonder, could you create a custom search engine with that URL and then create like a refinement tab for email addresses?
we could you could do that. You could actually go one better. So this one page here, and the URL of this one page is this. So it's like the base URL, Pipermail, which is like the listserv mailing program that Apache uses, OpenStack Dev, which is the forum, and then 2017 July, which is the folder for 2017 July, and then the individual post. So if I just go up one folder level, just to the month and the year, I can then get all of these links. And this is what you're talking about. What if I just went through and I grabbed all of these links and all of the emails out of all of these links?
Exactly.
Yes. So that's what I did. I created a data miner recipe to grab all of the URLs and then to pull out all of the emails within the URLs and then dedupe it. So here's all the links and emails out of those URLs, and when you dedupe it, there you go.
Brilliant.
And then you insert sinister laugh. So I mean, this is good because like basically you now have, and again, this is where like the data enrichment piece would help, whether you're gonna upload this into like LinkedIn or upload this list into HireTool if you can, or Seek Out, or just your ATS, or a data enrichment tool like Clearbit or Contacts Plus. But you have a group of people where you know what they do and you know what their emails are. I mean, you have most of the information you need, other than just kind of like matching them to like you know other social profiles. So yeah, that example brought to you by Google Research, Cyber Sleuthing, Data Miner, and Data Cleanup.
Awesome.
Good. So I guess, Erin, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to move the slides, we
Yeah,
don't
I'll
need
move
to
the slide.
move control or anything. Yeah, so we just kind of want to wrap up this presentation by showing you a couple of ways to pick apart a profile on just about any platform. Because when you're searching for your fish in a barrel for those little lesser known communities, you're not always going to have an immediate familiarity with the platform itself. So here's just a couple of things that we want you to keep in mind as you're looking at and evaluating a profile. So next slide. I love looking at the URL. I know we've touched on that a little bit already, but always look for unique identifiers. They're not always going to be in the URL, but for this example in Stack Overflow, the user ID number is what is in the first arrow there, and then the username is what is one level below that. So what you can do if you want to find other profiles, you can actually take out those unique identifiers, replace them with an asterisk, and run a site search with that, and then add your search terms after that. And you can find anybody with a profile that maybe has Java listed in it, maybe people that are located in New York City, because Stack Overflow profiles sometimes include a location for where someone is. So just knowing little things like that, how to find more things like that in terms of profiles. Always look for the unique identifier in the URL if there is one.
Yeah, and Stack Overflow makes it easy.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Look for any words that are specific to profiles. For example, on a GitHub profile, you'll see block or report user. All of the profiles will have that verbiage in there. Maybe there's other tabs in certain profiles like overview, repositories, or projects. You can include those in your site search so that it indexes any pages within that website that have that verbiage. And then once again, add all of your additional search terms to narrow it down for exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, nice. And then, but besides like the URL, which we showed a couple of, and then the keywords in the body of the page, you can also look for stuff in the title of the page, as long as it's something that is unique and will return you basically more of the same. And that's why we do these types of searches. You're basically looking of ways to replicate like the one thing that you found. I mean, it's great to find the one thing, but can you replicate that a bunch of times so you can find more? Because you always want more. So here's one, CodePen, which is a different coding site. But here's a profile on CodePen. So the URL, if you look at it, there's nothing in the URL that's going to help us. The URL is just codepen.io / and then the username. So that's not going to help us. Now I could do stuff in the body of the page, like followers or following. I mean, I could do stuff like that. Sometimes that does work, but sometimes you have to end up putting like a lot of keywords. But there is something else that could help, and that is the title of the page. See how it says the user on CodePen? As long as only users have that format in the title of the page, that means I can utilize that format in my search, which means I can come up with a simple Google search string and put on CodePen in the title of the page, and then whatever other keywords that I want. So in this case, I was looking for people in Amsterdam. And when I do that, I test it out to make sure it works, and it works for the most part. I mean, I found somebody named actually Amsterdam. I mean, I don't know if that's really his name, but for the most part, though, it does work. And you can see how it works, and you can then add your other stuff to the search. But that's like a very easy way to kind of figure out ways to replicate your search that you did.
Yes, and lastly, image searching. Love image searching, especially on places like Meetup, where a lot of people don't tend to put contact information in there. They might put their location, but it's very simple. And I'm actually embarrassed to admit this, but until a couple of weeks ago, I was actually saving the images and uploading them into Google Advanced Image Search, not knowing that you can right-click for Google image search and it'll take you right to the search that you want to do. So thanks, Mike Broman, for actually correcting me there when we were doing some hackathon questions as a team. But that's going to save me a lot of time in the future. And if you take a look at the search result here, we find that she does use this profile in multiple different places online. She had an AngelList profile, she had a GitHub profile, and she's in several other meetup groups as well. So it's always worth running any kind of image into Google image search if you don't see any other information that's going to be helpful for you. And then in addition to that, there's a couple other search engines that are specifically for images. For example, Yandex is great for facial recognition. TinEye is actually really good for identifying things with logos in them. And then another thing that I use every once in a while is remove background, because sometimes the search engine can get confused by images in the background. So you can use this to remove the background, and then the search engine will focus on whatever is in the foreground that you're specifically trying to find.
Yeah, and the right clicking and searching images is good too if you think you're looking at a fake profile. You just do that on
Yes.
Google, and then you can see it. You see all the places that this stock photo has been used.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time some developer used Guilfoyle's picture from Silicon Valley, I swear, like it's not even funny.
Nice. Or somebody from the It crowd.
Yes.
So yeah, that's like pretty much the presentation, wouldn't you say?
I'd say so.
You guys are just like full of smiles tonight. That's good. All right, some questions for you. Got time for questions?
Yep.
Sure.
Word. All right. What are your top 4 or 5 search engines that you recommend outside of Google?
Outside of Google, I really like Xlead. That's actually a non-commercial search engine. I've gotten some really interesting results from that, especially when searching resumes. So if you haven't used that one before, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And then I don't know that I would have 3 other specific search engines that I really like, but I'm a big fan of custom search engines and sometimes
Yeah.
building my own to get exactly what I want.
Okay.
Yeah, Google CSEs and then Bing. I mean, even if you do simple site searches for LinkedIn and Google, do the same site search in Bing and you'll get some different results.
Okay. If anyone has Q&A or questions, drop it in the Q&A box and we will start moderating those. We have a few more that we have here. Can you recommend a social media aggregator to search profiles?
Yeah, you can. Those are okay. The reason why those are okay is because you're basically everybody else is using those as well. And also the searches that they come up with are sometimes like a little too general and they don't allow any freedom in the way that um, those those words are being manipulated on the page. So, I mean, you can use them. I mean, there are of course things like, Seek Out, like Amazing Hiring, like, Hire Tool and stuff like that. But it's also a good idea to be able to replicate the searches for individual sites on your own. Again, because you will get different results and because you'll have more control over how you're searching. Because when you search using one of these social aggregators, you're relying on their search technology and their algorithms and their thinking behind search, which may be different than your thinking.
Yeah, and I used to have a favorite one, but then they disabled it because Facebook didn't like it. But People Find Thor was amazing. I used to
Oh
love
yeah,
that tool.
yeah, that was good.
We got some more here. Does Google restrict my returned results based on anything specific?
I mean, it's going to give you a bunch of results, but it's only going to let you see um, like under 1,000, or like if you go to the main search page, it's like under like a few hundred. So you can get around that several ways, but they do that because they figure that most people are not sourcers; they're just average people, and so they're going to find what they need within the first, you know, 10 or 20 results.
Right.
Google did not build Google for sourcers. They built it for like the average Joe. So to get around that, you need to take your strings and like break them up instead of having like a parentheses of like every, job title, do one job title and minus out the rest, and then run it again and switch it out and run one job title and then minus out the rest, just so you can get all of the results for whatever your search is.
Okay. Erin, we
Yeah,
got.
and
Okay.
something interesting that I noticed when I was first trying to learn how to search Reddit was that a lot of the searches that I did sometimes just inexplicably were limited to 5 results. But then when I did the exact same search in a Reddit custom search engine that I built, it didn't limit the results. I don't know why that is, but if you run into something like that, try to make the internet a little bit of a smaller place and build a Google custom search engine. It takes like 5 minutes if you're only indexing one website.
Right. All right. So we have some more here. I'm just looking over to see. This is great stuff, but exhaustive. We we need to
Sorry?
search and
Well,
submit.
it's making us tired.
Yeah, it's making us tired. This is great stuff, but exhaustive. We need to search and submit quickly with quality, primarily contract. What would be your one go-to?
So if you're doing contracts, so I've come from both worlds, the full-time corporate and the contract world. So if you're in the contract world, yes, you do have to submit within sometimes hours. So then you are limited to like a lot of like your job board. I mean, obviously your ATS searching first, and then your job boards, and then your like LinkedIn stuff. I mean, because again, And also, I wouldn't, if I was looking for a contract software engineer, I wouldn't necessarily go like through all the work that I did just to do that, because for one, they're probably like full time, and there's a number of other, time factors that are hindering me. So I would keep
Right.
it to the other searches that I mentioned, just for the time factor, because you're up against competition of like 10 to 20 to 30 other vendors all doing the same search. So really in that aspect, if you're in the contract world, the search string matters the most. You can come up with like the best search string and execute the fastest and then call the quickest.
Okay. So, Mark, so maybe both of you. Do either of you build Google custom search engines?
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
So, can I put you on the spot? Somebody who was on the call earlier who had to jump and couldn't see would love to see you build a Google custom search engine in a few minutes remaining. Is that possible?
I could probably just show you how one works. I mean, to build one, you have to
Yeah.
like kind of like test it and stuff. But here,
Yeah,
I
yeah, I think
will.
that's fine.
Okay, yeah, but I
So
can
how,
show you
yeah,
ones that will work here. So
you
let
should
me.
have you still have screen sharing.
Okay, I'll do that then.
Yeah.
Um,
And
And
also,
then
Brian Fink is amazing at building custom search engines too.
yeah. And Paige, we have a lot of content on that, so we can share that as well, and we can get you connected to that.
so can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so here's a bunch of search engines that I've come up with. I guess I have a lot. Okay, so basically the idea is that you can search as much or as little of the quote unquote interwebs as you want. And so when it comes to what you're going to search, you can you can take these long search strings and summarize them with a single keyword. And you call upon that keyword by using more. And so this one is a search engine I created for like diversity searches. And I actually have a bunch of these because I keep on refining these. But basically searching by like simple job titles, maybe simple job titles with something related to like AI or deep learning, so that I can take this simple search, which was just more LinkedIn, more SWE, and more AI, and it's going to give me all the stuff related to machine learning AI developers, right? And then of course I can always add more to it, like a regular search string. I could put, greater Chicago area if I want, um, like that, and then it'll limit the search results like a normal search engine. But it's pretty cool. It works pretty well. Not only can you do that, but because of the keywords I put in here, I can also use things like first names, which I kind of like separate out, like so. Or I could do, you know, I did Hispanic first names. I did like all these like different things. So it's like you basically have as much or as little of the internet in your search as possible. And not only can you do that, but you can also do that for things like Twitter. So I created another search feature for Twitter. So now I'm actually searching for profiles on Twitter, software engineering titles with Hispanic first names. See that? So it's just a simple way to manipulate those results. And you could do this obviously in a regular Google search engine, but this is just a quick and easy way to replicate those, like so. See? Now, of course, it's not foolproof because, again, Casey, that could be a guy or a girl's name. So it's like when you're doing first names, this is not the only way to do it. What I do is I create lists of popular first names for females. I do it for each geographic region. I'll do it for like countries. I'll do it for US. I'll do it for Korea, for Japan, for mainland China, and I'll do it for different countries. And I'll swap these things out in my search engine so that I get a real view on what's out there. So that's just kind of what's possible.
All right. Very good. Thank you for jumping in there, Mark. Erin, we'll ask the last question for you, and it's a simple one. I promise we're not going to make you share your screen and jump in.
Erin, code us something in Python really quick.
So can
I
you
can write a couple subject lines in Python, but I'm still terrible at Python.
what was the what is the search engine that you just mentioned? That was back around 517. Not sure if you remember, but
The one that I
Tumbleweed.
answered during the Q&A.
Probably. It looks like they wrote Tumbleweed, maybe.
Was it Exalead?
Exalead.
Actually,
Yeah, Exalead.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Tumbleweed. There you go, Angela. We got it. Perfect.
Tumbleweed. I'm calling it tumbleweed now. That's better.
Yep. And then one last one. I keep seeing billboards for DuckDuckGo. I've heard of them, but
Oh
why
yeah.
are they advertising?
DuckDuckGo doesn't track your search results, so that's one thing that appeals to a lot of people, especially if you're running a lot of searches, which we do as sourcers.
Mhm.
They're not going to constantly be verifying that you're a robot and whatnot. So
yeah, yeah. Same
Yeah.
thing for start page, and same thing for Teoma.
Very good.
They don't
oh,
track
Teoma,
your.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah,